Arneodo. I work in 5T. That is, we are also partner of NAPCORE. But today I'm here with the role of OpRa is with, and I'm happy to check if and how this could be eventually enhanced to tackle the needs of the project NAPCORE and to bring benefits for the improvement of the governance of the national access points. Okay, if you want, I can start to share my presentation. As you suggested, interrupt me whenever you want with question, so we can also use, let me say, this presentation not only for description but also for to stimulate the discussion. Okay, so I go to share.
And as you might not be able to see who is raising the hand, I can make sure that if I see a hand raised, I will interrupt you.
Thank you very much. Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Okay. I put in presentation mode. Okay. Sorry. Starting from the last is not very good. Okay, so today, as I anticipated, I would share with you what is OpRa. OpRa is an acronym that stands for Operating Raw Data and Statistics Exchange. This is a standards under the Transmodal umbrella, and it's part of the work done in the SAN TC278 WG3, the working group of SAN dealing with standards for public transport. And it is part of the Transmodal ecosystem, and this is basically very compliant with the Transmodal logical model and very close to the NeTEx and SIRI as a approach. Okay, let's start with the scope. Basically, OpRa deals with the representation of operational raw data generated by the public transport service and the public transport operators in order to, create a so-called common data structure to improve, not to improve, but to give the means to have a quantitative performance monitoring of the service. Basically, this is the reason why OpRa was introduced beside the previous created NeTEx and SIRI. It basically defines operational context. And so, as you are, I suppose you are very familiar with this operational context, so duties, blocks, journeys, and on the base of this, it defines also what we consider raw measurement, and for example, timestamps, position of vehicles that have to be exchanged in this context to enable the monitoring. And of course, it creates also let me say, the comparison with the planet, improving also the checks at the study of the planning, gathering historical and observer data. And in this perspective also, it defines KPIs, so key performance indicators that use the gated raw data to calculate, we will see more in detail the use cases later on. Okay, it is designed to basically support potentially several, it's quite general, so it can support several control activities. Those needed to have a performance-based contracts monitoring, PT contracts monitoring, but also it could be used for regulatory audits performed by PTAs, for example. But a subset can be used also inside PTO to enable internal audits, for example, in order to have a continuous improvement process. Of course, with this approach, it's possible to build on the top business intelligence and operational analytics. And beside this vertical purpose, of course, it can give also the chance to, sharing data, and so it's very useful in potentially in a context of mobility data space, but also data fusion, for example, between AVM systems and ticketing systems, or moreover, mass platform. Okay, this is the overall scope. I mentioned, and this is important to consider, that this is a formal standard. So we are developing this standard according to the SEN process, but in particular from a technical point of view, I would like to underline that we are fully compliant with Transmodel, and in particular the part 8, the management part described in part 8 of Transmodel. And in terms of XSD, because we are talking about an exchange protocol, for OpRa is an exchange data protocol. In terms of XSD, there is a reuse of some structures of NeTEx and SIRI. So it is very strictly correlated to these working groups, to these subgroups of WG3. Okay, in this picture, I basically logically represent the main phases of the service and how the already mentioned standards can match, can cover them. Okay, so we have the strategic and tactical planning, the before travel and during the travel, and the last is the so-called study and control phase that can be done to have the feedback, to improve and to check tactical planning and strategic planning. For instance, strategic planning is the planning done usually by the PTAs, and the tactical planning is the one done by public transport operators. So OpRa deals with both and can improve, can give feedbacks to both. Okay, so with this raw data in these slides, I represented how those raw data can be used and which kind of indicator can be calculated. The limit in such way is just the fantasy, because with this raw data it's possible to enable a lot of indicators. So it's a matter also to understand which are of those indicators the one that we consider key indicators. This concerning the scope, just a couple of words on stakeholders. Okay, OpRa started work a few years ago, and in terms of formal deliverable, it has been published in 2019, a SEN technical report that is available. You can download from and ask to your national standardization board, and as you can see, we have during the work we involved a lot of stakeholders, not only in terms of numbers but also in terms of different business categories. So we have PTOs, authorities, software integrators, and so a good coverage, a good representation. In terms of countries, in these slides, honestly speaking, is not really up to date at the last minute, but is quite aligned. As you can see, several countries vote positively to TR, and so are very interested. And some of them are also involved actively in the work, because SEN 3 years ago, almost 30 years ago, create a project called OpRa Plus, selecting experts for the development of ETS that I will describe later on. Okay, let's enter more in detail in the use cases defined for OpRa. Okay, basically, during the TR work, we did a huge work in gathering and listen the voice of the stakeholders for gathering KPIs, indicators, interested indicators. And we also analyzed at that time the European projects that dealt with indicator calculation for public transport. On the base of that, we also defined a methodology, and in particular, what I would like to share today with you is the categories we defined for the aggregation of family of indicators. The first is generic categories that is not so interested for the discussion of today. So I would move to the first one, that is vertical. It concerns with service offer. It's called service offer, and it deals with the use cases relevant to the all the offer of the service. So basically, what is concerned the available journeys, available seats, and in terms of offer, we also divided this the indicators belonging to these categories in a planned service offer and actual service offer. As the word say, the planned is calculated on the base of only on the base of the plan, and actual is on the base of the measurement. So after the service has been performed. For a service demand, the second category, it deals with the demand. So what is the, for example, expected number of people moving on the territory to be transported, origin destination matrices, and so forth. And also here we decided to evaluate a priori indicators, so expected demand, and a posteriori, so the actual service demand. Moving forward, the third deal with externality. This is interesting because it gather indicators that give the chance to understand what is the externality in terms of, for example, incidents or pollution, let me say, in general, to evaluate the impact on the society, on the mobility, on the citizens, on the territory of the to perform of the performed service. Okay, then there is an important, very important for PTAs, the service economy. Service economy includes indicators to evaluate a lot of information concerning economy, funds provided by central government, but also incoming coming from PTO from selling tickets, selling sales products, and involving also in some for some authorities also the valuation of um, the costs in terms of vehicle used, but also personal involved to perform the service. So quite a detailed analysis. Last but not least is the service efficiency. Service efficiency, as the name declare, it deals with to understand how our service is good or not good enough in terms of, for example, delays or mean time between failures. So eventually line overlaps. So not so good planning and feedback of this in this way. Okay, and this is basically the numbers that we have just to give you a dimension. So we gather at the moment 88 use cases, but really speaking, during my dissemination, I just started dissemination of this work end of last year, and talking with other stakeholders like national regulatory authorities, I'm receiving other inputs for further use cases. So, but this is the picture of the use cases we gathered and documented in the TR. So as you can see, we divided them in in categories I just described, but also in prioritization, P1, 2, and 3, and this has been done to answer to the commitment as a team we have with the European Commission to complete the work and to complete the first technical specification. Of course, to do that, it was not possible to document in the TS and create an XSD covering all the 88 use cases. This is why we defined this prioritization. P1, we selected P1 that are the indicators with high relevance for the MMTIS regulation. Then we give priority to in P2 to the indicators that are important for performance-based contracts monitoring, and P3 the others. Do you have any question at the moment?
So far, no.
Okay, I can proceed. Okay, I don't enter more in detail, but I represented also to have this for your convenience in the slides, the P1 use cases. I give you a general description, and then we will have I introduce with a colleague of mine, Andre, a detail on the delays to give you more details about the approach we use. I think it's good to share today also what is the approach. Okay, as you can see here, those are the service offer P1 use cases, the planned and the actual. Basically here we have the number of seats, offered seats, on a for the service, and the mean seats offered on a based of on the performance distance. Okay, and the third deals with the cancellation, so journeys that are canceled. This is delays and cancellation are, in particular, delays are clearly mentioned in the MMTIS. This is why we included this both, and together with the cancellation. And for the actual, we have the number of actual offered seats that are measured, of course, on the base of the performed service, which type of vehicles have been used to perform and the calculation of the seats that are available for all the vehicles involved in the service. Okay, during the work we
Quickly on this.
yeah,
So
please.
like here you have the plan number and also the seats offer, and therefore the difference between the plan and the offer seats will be the cancellations, or how do you?
Oh, sorry for the confusion. Are two different aspects. Seats are, let me say, the planned seats are calculated the former on the base of number of vehicles, and the second on the performance distance. So basically, is a change of formulae, but the planned seats is the raw data, and the third is cancellation of journeys. So if you plan to have a certain number of journeys today, and you cancel the 10 journeys because for example, you could have a failure in some buses. The cancellation deal with of course, there is also an indirect impact on the offered seats for that day, but the indicator calculate the number of cancellation of the journeys. This is important to understand how, as a PTO, the service is the offer is the actual service offer is good or not. Okay, thank you.
There's also one question from Joao.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Yes, Fabrizio, hello, how are you? João from Portugal.
Joao, nice to meet you.
Hello. I have a question here regarding to that use case offer 001009, the planned service. Nonetheless, operates a part of NeTEx or part of the large transmodal. You say here that shall be provided under a well-documented standard and profile. If it is not NeTEx, it could be GTFS, or GTFS is not well structured to do this, to be integrated in the OpRa also.
Well, you know that GTFS is limited.
Yes.
For this kind of work, and on the other end is not fully compliant with transmodel. So when to answer your question, when we talk here about planned service, is NeTEx compliant as a behavior, okay? But this gives me the chance to quickly introduce the fact that we are in liaison with mobility data. Mobility data, just for those that could not be aware, is the Canadian association that manage the Google technical specification like GTFS, GBFS. And they started to work on a new project called TIDES. And TIDES is very similar to OpRa. And so this is, Joao, basically, they are thinking about something similar to OpRa as well.
Okay. So you know, since the time of Data4PT that we're trying to integrate NeTEx in some of our systems here in Portugal. Nonetheless, it's very difficult because the operators and the transporter, the PTAs, it's very difficult to integrate NeTEx. So we are now dealing with the problem that we dealt a long time ago. That is, it's very difficult to integrate NeTEx. So we're trying to make to balance here with NeTEx and with GTFS, and we know the limitation of the NeTEx, but of GTFS, but NeTEx has a very large limitation in the knowledge of the PTOs and the PTAs. So
That's right.
here in Portugal, we are entering in the period of the second tender phase, and it's very difficult to say to the PTOs and PTAs that they have to use NeTEx. We have now some new ticketing systems that could be in the base of NeTEx, but everyone is using GTFS. So it's very it is being a challenge, and so that's why I was answering. I was answering that or asking you that. So
I understand the point.
okay, if you please just because I didn't get the name to put what mobility data is working with, because in some points we have already contact mobility data and we are working with them with some of our PTOs. So if you can just
Okay, Isabel De Roberti is the European director for mobility data, but
okay.
this TIDES is the some US guys are working on that project, and I have contact with them. But probably it's
No,
better you pass through Isabel before.
okay, but the scheme that you were saying about the OpRa that mobility data is working with, and it is similar. You have spoken about something that
Yeah,
mobility data.
we are talking about here of observed data, okay? And
So yes,
GTFS is like NeTEx. It deals with planet data.
yes.
So TIDES announced this concept, and it's in this way it's similar to OpRa, similar in the sense that the approach is similar, but of course is different because it is an announcement of their GTFS format.
Okay, thank you, Fabrizio. I think Sarah, it's here already with the hand raised.
But Joao,
Yeah.
consider that the work I'm describing you today is a commitment for European Commission, and the OpRa will be part of the MMTIS as soon as it will be published as a SAN official standard. The reason why is not already mentioned in the MMTIS together with Transmodal, NeTEx, and SIRI is because at the moment, officially OpRa is only a TR. But in the summertime of this year, it will be published, and so I don't know the timeline, of course, but EC will introduce it in the MMTIS, and so OpRa will become again a mandatory for member states.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
Very welcome. Okay.
Just a short comment. Well, thank you, Fabrizio. And it's more a comment also for the question of João. Transmodal-based standards are, we are aware, both in NAPCORE and in the SAN groups, that there is some sort of challenges behind it, but also remind you that working group 2 NAPCORE is working on crossing these barriers and making it easy, and also to check out task 4.3 multimodal standards, which is basically more information about the adoption and facilitating data providers to be more prepared. So João, this is for you, and great job here, Fabrizio, in introducing OpRa, and you're still not finished, so I will let you finish. And to remind that this will be technical specification very soon, so an effort is needed to adopt it soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for the integration. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Let's moving forward to again a service offer, but we introduce a couple of P2 and one P2 and one P3 use case because it was quite simple to introduce. Let me say, during the work we consider this already as a part of the schema we had in the XSD and deal with the planned vehicle journey and the actual vehicle journey. Okay. For the demand, we basically include this couple of use cases concerning the basically the number of journeys that have been planned and performed. So this is also, you know, I forgot to mention that as a methodology we basically update first of all the UML model. We announced the transmodel, and of course after the logical modeling we also update the physical model, so the XSD. So here we these use cases deal with the expected number of passengers and actual number of passengers. That is the base we consider as to monitor the demand. Okay, for the efficiency, basically, I don't enter in details, but here we selected the use cases dealing with the delay calculation. So how to calculate the delay, giving also the chance for the consumer to define the criteria to define what is a delay. An authority told me for us a delay is 1 hour and a half for trains. Before it's not significant. For a PTO probably is less. So the concept of delays, of the definition of delays, of course, it also depends on the type of kind of consumer. So I was saying delays of calculation, delays, the use cases then deal with the causes of delays. But I don't enter in detail because we have an example further after subsequent slides. Okay. So, okay. So far, I share you the approach. So use cases gated, divided in categories according to several stakeholder contribution. And as I mentioned, P1 are those strictly related or very important, let me say, for EC and for the MMTI regulation. We are also currently working, so this part is still in development, giving the chance with OpRa to exchange, to calculate the so-called contextual indicator. So basically, this is giving the chance to have a placeholder for exchanging non-EU standard indicators, but using a standard approach. Sorry for this potential paradox, but is what I would say is that there could be some indicator not included in OpRa, and so custom indicators that want to be calculated. And so with this mechanism, it's possible to reuse all the approach, standardized approach, in terms of raw data exchange, in terms of compliance with transmodel, in terms of reuse of structures. Very useful to calculate, of course, to calculate contextual indicators. Is also possible to, for example, to define custom units elements, for example, for emission. In this with this approach, it is important to define the context. The context must be formal defined. Example of contextual indicators could be, for example, vehicle cleanness measurement, employee performance for a viable journey, fleet performance and consumption, and so forth. Of course, there are requirements that have to be respected, like the definition of formal tags, ID tags for indicator, and having a regulation context reference that could be, for example, a contract, a public transport contract. Okay, this is an example provided by a colleague of mine, Gergely, that is a part of, is one of the experts working on the OpRa standardization group. And in this short XML example, you can see an indicator to calculate the cleanness of to check the level of cleanness of the fleet vehicles. In this example, each vehicle is classified, is checked and classified between 1 and 2. 1 is the worst and 5 is the best. And the average is exchanged. So as you can see in this XML, basically on the base of the line, there is the name of the formal tag name of the indicator and the main value. You can see for line 10, we have 2.5. For line for the other line 20 is the level is 4, and so forth. So we think that this could be also interesting for you know, to have a flexible standard to be reused. Okay, I would pass the floor to, I don't know, Andre or Sarah, that kindly integrate this presentation with an example, further example on late and cancel journey indicators that I mentioned before.
Perhaps Andre would like to talk a bit more, as he was so involved in this.
Yeah, okay, so, of course. Okay, so good morning, everyone from Maribor. So this is one, let's say, top priority indicator, as Fabrizio also mentioned in his table. So in the group, we marked it as a high priority according to the MMTIS. So they belong, the two indicators belong to the efficiency group of calculators. And they are sourcing basically the information from the static PT scope, where we have the vehicles, so vehicle journey, dated vehicle journey lines, and so on, as well as from the actually dynamic part, so the actual data based on the monitoring and the events that happen while in operation. So this data, of course, are very useful for all sites. I mean, also as well as from the operators and the authorities, because they can contribute for a lot of analysis, and they're based on different calculations as well, as Fabrizio said. So it could be for delay, for example, a delay threshold can be defined in intervals, and this is also how we model it. Okay, next slide, please, Fabrizio. Okay, so what I want to give you an insight into is the actually exchange file in NeTEx, basically, that we developed as an example in the OpRa Plus group, that contains two entries. So one is a delayed journey, and one is cancel journey. The one that is delayed has a 5-minute delay caused by the vehicle that actually, the previous vehicle that was late. That's why that delay was caused. And the cancel journey records an event in the case, so the cancellation due to the vehicle damage report. As OpRa actually is based on the NeTEx artifacts, physical artifacts, meaning that the data object exchange are actually using completely a NeTEx philosophy, NeTEx schemas. But of course, they are transmodel driven. So conceptually, for each of those indicators, we have a conceptual model, transmodel based in the background, and this is how then we arrive to those physical, I mean, real examples. That example also shows the fragment of in NeTEx, which then shows actually the aggregation of this operational statistics, so delayed, number of delays based on the time interval. And we will see that we have 2-3 time intervals in the so it's from 0 to 5 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes, and 10 to 5 to 10, and 10 to 20 minutes, plus also statistic for the cancellations. So the first part, next slide, please. The first part is about the the excerpt from the delay example, which shows a data object inside the indicator frame. So the same as in NeTEx, where we have a timetable frame, a service frame. We here define an indicator frame, where then we can actually list a collection or sequence of different log entries. So log entries in OpRa are actually feeding the indicators. Based on the collection of log entries, we actually collect all the data for the individual indicator. And then, of course, from here on, we define some generic statistic classes like duration, interval, number of occurrences that can then be further subclassed and used by different users. So in this example, we can see that the vehicle with the, I mean the journey with the journey pattern, and there is a reference of the journey pattern, and the dated vehicle journey, which means it's a vehicle journey on a particular date. So basically on a production, from the production plan, that there was a 5 minutes delay, or well, within that category of delays. And that delay was triggered by an operational event, which is actually late returned vehicle event. So meaning that in this case, we could interpret it as that the previous vehicle from the previous connection was late, for example. That event ID takes us further into that dynamic part of the system where we can trace down the event ID. So this is where actually this originates from, if we want to get more information on the event. There is a textual description of that event, which is nice for records and exchange. And this is the main part of it. Then the next slide shows actually inside the same NeTEx file, the cancellation. So the log entries, they can go along with the delays in one single file inside the same indicator frame. And we can see that these are the cancellation cancel journey entries. In this case, what are the details? So the initial part is the same. We have the journey path reference, we have native vehicle journey reference, and then we have the cause. So the control action. This is the operator action that followed based on that event. So what happened? The event type is that the vehicle was damaged. So the control action that followed was that the journey was cancelled, and that's the journey cancellation event. Control action. I mean, okay. And then there was what is also important here. It's that there was no replacement journey created. It could be, but in this case, that illustrates that there was no journey created after this. Okay, and then the last part of this example is the indicator group, and this groups then those log entries from before into the categories. So we defined. We defined the generic classes that can be used. So duration interval with a start of interval and end of interval. So let's say very mathematically if the last number is included or not, so false and true. And then we can here exchange the number of occurrences. So all those delays that fall into the 10 minutes delay. The same for the next one has 20 minutes, as you can see, from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. And the percentage of occurrences also is included in OpRa. So what's the percentage of those that fall into this delay duration interval? And then the last block is the cancelled vehicle journey count. And in this case, like also the same logic. So the number of occurrences and the percentage of the occurrences, all actually, as you can see, related to that particular journey pattern reference. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrei, for this description. Gomez, are there any questions? Sorry, but I cannot see the hands raised or something like that. Otherwise, I proceed. Okay.
I have a question, like in general, with this type of information, and is how much of it or how long is it stored after? I mean, of course, the MMTIS is clear about that you have to store the delays for a certain type of days according to the mode that you're working with. But then the idea is that OpRa also takes that into account, and then you plan it, or it can be stored for more time, and then it's the decision of the owner to delete the registry once it's no longer useful. Or how do you have that in mind?
A good question. Is a little bit on the border of OpRa in the meaning that really OpRa does not deal with this criteria, but is more up to the contracts or regulation above the consumer, producer, consumer. And so I could answer on the base of my personal experience. In my region, we gather data from on behalf of the local administration from the PTOs, and we calculate some indicators, of course, and we take this at the moment for quite a long time. So last 5 years we have all the data, because Piedmont region required to do in this way. But I think that apart of what you mentioned for the MMTIS, probably it depends. I would say it depends on the contract, on what is defined in the contracts between PTA and PTO.
That's a good thing indeed. Yeah, based on that, you can have tracking of the information indeed. Thank you, Fabrizio.
You're welcome. Okay, I move forward. At the conclusion of my presentation, I would share with you just the work plan to give you also a timeline, reference timeline. Okay, here you can see also task not strictly relevant to OpRa TS, but OpRa TS is part of this more bigger plan. Okay, basically we are very close to complete the update, the enhancement of Transmodal Part 8 EN, and the completion of the first OpRa technical specification. I mentioned both together because basically are the UML modeling of OpRa is done in Transmodal Part 8. So we are working and bringing them together basically in parallel. At the end of last year, we had an internal a CIB, an internal review in the SAN context, and we received some comments, addressed them. So this is just to share with you that we are in a very good position now, and our plan is to submit both documents by the end of next month, March, and I can confirm right now that we are basically on plan. Next steps, it entering the send process. I don't want to bore you with these details, but just to give you an idea, then there will be an editorial review and technical comments, no more, because we already done this end of last year, so this should be already done. And so our feeling is that in the summertime we should have OpRa TS published and available at your NSB. Okay, I think this is all what I would share with you today, and of course I'm available for any further question or clarification.
Thank you, Fabrizio. So now I think we can open the floor for questions from all the other participants from class 2.2. And yeah, so I already mentioned about the delays on the according to the regulation and the passenger rights. Other that I had in mind was, like, for instance, for this KPIs, they are also defined based on the use cases, I assume, but also on the operation of the PTOs and PTAs based on, like, that's a bit modular based on which type of elements are the most relevant ones for them, right?
Yes, of course, because we try that TR time when we did TR to answer to different necessity. So PTOs for tactical planning, and not only, but also for that, and PTAs. So these two main users.
I don't know if there are any other questions from the people in the meeting.
While the colleagues are thinking about any question, I can share that I would share with you what is going on in Italy, because it's my country, not because not for other reason, of course. I'm in touch with the National Transport Regulatory Authority. They basically established for the transport agency to include in the new transport contracts the calculation of 30 KPIs. And so I did the exercise to check what could be taken with the OpRa, and I share with them for dissemination purpose, of course. And we have already now an agency in the Milan zone that okay, cannot mention OpRa yet for the same reason MMTIS cannot do, because TS is not published yet, but they asked us to support them in the writing of the public tenders for the PTOs that will answer to the public tender, to write and to require and let me say an OpRa approach. So in other words, and this is also quite close to the question did before by Joao. We required in the public tender level the need to send raw data to the agency for indicator calculation. So this is a first step in Italy. Okay, there are also other agencies that calculate indicators, I mean, but this is the first time we have a public tender that required to be compliant with standard, considering dealing with indicator calculation.
Fabrizio, can I ask you something regarding to the tender that is very interesting, because as I say to you, now we are in the second generation here in Portugal. And regarding to that, how you do it, how you did it? You did it like a guide to the PTA to launch the tender? Because I think a guide would be very interesting. For instance, here in Portugal, as you know, we have 23 regions or 23 large PTAs. So one of the problems that the PTAs have is the lack of knowledge in that kind of what do they have to put in the tenders. And in the first tenders generation, they didn't put some things that were very important, like regarding to ticketing, regarding to these questions that we are speaking here today. So I think something that is important is like a guide to the PTAs. Do you do it like this in Italy, or you have another approach, not in a kind of guide? Well, how you did it?
You remember probably that in Italy we have defined Italian profile for NeTEx and for SIRI for the purpose of national access point, of course. This is another story respect OpRa. And so in this tender, this agency require, as I mentioned before, they require to gather raw data, and in the annex they indicate exactly which raw data they want, and the fact that they want those raw data using NeTEx and SIRI Italian profile. We have wrote our public available national guidelines, and so system integrator have all the documentation available for the implementation and to of course for the format. Then is up to the it depends on the IT systems that they have to understand where they could have such kind of AVM and a product for the planning. Profile. So to answer your question, in the tender, is not published yet, but is almost ready. They will require to send data using NeTEx and SIRI Italian profile.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Fabrizio. Are there comments on the presentation? I think we don't have any other questions. I will like to ask you also if you can share with us the slides. Perhaps you can share them with me and I can put them in the SharePoint.
Yes,
so we
of
can
course.
have access to them. I heard another voice, but I'm not sure. No. Okay, so if there are any other questions, I think we can close the meeting here. I would like to thank you, Fabrizio, again for your time, for your presentation. I think for us is more clear also on the relationship with MMTIS, historic data, data categories that are requested, and also how to build forward based on that, and the role that OpRa will have on that regard. Of course, we know that still OpRa is under development, let's say, and it will take some time until it is fully finished, and also until it is fully deployed within all the different stakeholders that will use it. But for sure, for us, having already like an overview on which things will be included and how they're going to be included can help us to identify like on which data categories we can use and we can recommend the use of OpRa. So that's also really important for us. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And I will send after the meeting in a couple of days the notes or the key highlights, also jointly with the link to the slides shared by Fabrizio. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Fabrizio.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.